Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today is my Q4 birthday reading project wrap up. So this is the last quarter that I did my birthday reading project, which is a project I've been doing since last October, since my birthday of last year. And I asked you guys to suggest 39 books I should read before I turn 40. And the first 39 books that were suggested to me, I put on a list, and then I took the entire year of my 39th year and I read those books. And I did finish it up a little bit after my birthday, but still in my birthday month, which was my overall goal. So I met it, and I really am happy that I actually did it. So these are the last books that I read, and these are going to be 12 different books. So I will go through them and I will tell you what my overall thoughts of them were. First book I read was I Hunt Killers by Barry Lyga, and this was suggested to me from Amy Pelliser. And this one was a surprise. I really liked this book. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And this follows a young boy, I think he's 17, and he is the son of a very famous serial killer who is still alive. He's in jail, but he's awful. He's one of the worst characters I've ever read. And this son is dealing with, having that stigma on him of having this awful father who did awful things to people. And he was also raised, like his father was kind of grooming him to be like him. So he's fighting some urges as well from his upbringing, and you see him struggle with that. And it was really good. I really liked it. Some of the dialogue was a little bit cheesy, so that's why I gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5. So some of the dialogue was kind of like, okay. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a great surprise. I actually want to read the rest of the series as well. I think there's at least 4 books in this series from what I'm understanding, maybe 3. And some novellas or something like that. But I definitely plan to continue with this, and I just really liked it. The next one I read was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and this was suggested to me from Raylene Eichhoff. And this one I actually did own in paperback, but I want to get the hardcover, so I sent the paperback to a friend of mine who wanted it, and I'm going to be on the lookout for the hardcover of it so that all of my Ruta Sepetys match, because I have her other 2 books in hardcover. So I'm going to be doing a little swap, but I did send this to my friend Jamie already. But this one is a young adult World War II historical fiction, and it covers a part of the war that is not talked about very much, and it actually takes place in Lithuania, and it follows a train that is taking hostages just kind of around, and they're dumping these hostages to basically be labor workers for nothing. They're working for absolutely nothing. They're kept in awful conditions. They're basically treated like trash. Many of them end up getting killed by German soldiers, and you follow a family who is going through this, and it's a mother and her 2 kids, and just the things that they go through is really heartbreaking. It was hard to read at times. I really it's hard to say I enjoyed it, but I did. Like it was written really well, and just broke my heart so many different times, which I knew it would. And yeah, I definitely highly recommend this one. I gave it 5 stars. The next one that I picked up is A Safely Home, and this is by Randy Alcorn, and this was recommended to me by Kayla French, and this copy was actually sent to me by my friend Jennifer, so thank you. And this one is actually a Christian fiction, which I didn't realize going in. I didn't know that Randy Alcorn wrote Christian fiction books, but he does. And this one follows a man who was roommates with a Chinese native when they were in college, and the Chinese man was a Christian. However, he is not allowed to be a Christian in China. It was very frowned upon, and it's almost illegal to be a Christian in China. You can't teach those types of things to children or you'll get arrested. I don't know if it's still like that or not in China. I'm not sure what their religious views are or whatever, but during this book, that is 100% how it was. He was basically could have been publicly persecuted for being a Christian. So when he was in China, he had to hide that. Coming to America and going to college, he could do whatever he wanted freely and openly because we have that freedom of religion here. And the Chinese man ends up going back to China to live the rest of his life, but he's still struggling, trying to be a Christian over there. And you see the American go to China for a business trip or something, and he ends up staying with him and sees what he's going through and basically tries to help him fight his government for his own religious freedom. So it was very good. I was not expecting it to be what it was. I ended up giving it 4 stars because the writing wasn't the best. I don't think it was very basic, but the story was really good. The next book I read was The Life She Was Given by Ellen Marie Wiseman, and this was recommended to me by Mona Lily. And this book, I had a feeling this was going to be a 5-star read, and it absolutely was. I still think about these characters. I really, truly do. This book is one that's going to stay with me for a very long time. It follows a young girl who is born in the early 1900s, and she is born an albino. But back then, it didn't really have a name, I don't think, or it wasn't, publicly known exactly what her condition was. Her parents were very ashamed of the way that she was born and felt like maybe God was punishing them for some reason, and they kept her in the attic of their house and locked away, and nobody knew about her. One day, her mother decides she can't deal with it anymore, and she ends up selling her to a traveling circus that is going through their town. So you see her going through and being sold to the circus. She doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't understand why. She knows she's different, but she doesn't understand anything. She's a young girl, and she gets sold into the circus. Now, the people who run the circus are awful. They are awful, but she also meets some of the most important people in her life there as well. So it's, good and bad, definitely. We also follow a dual timeline where it's 25 years later, and there is the daughter of the same parents, and she had no idea that she had an older sister, and you see her dealing with the aftermath of the parents' death, and she goes back to their house that she inherited, and she's uncovering all these secrets and finding out that she had an older sister, and where is she and what happened to her, and she's trying to figure all that out. And it was very, very good. I loved the circus aspect of it. That was definitely my favorite parts of the book, was the circus part. And man, these characters are just incredible. They made me really feel a lot of things, and I haven't cared about characters like this in a very, very long time. And just the feelings it brought out in me was incredible. There was one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever read in a book ever, and it involved some elephants, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I just loved it so much. So definite 5 stars, and I will recommend this forever and ever. The next one that I picked up is The Vanishing by Wendy Webb, and this was recommended to me by Kay Fleck, and I actually was sent this one from another subscriber too. You guys were very generous. So this one is definitely a gothic, I would say like a gothic kind of spooky story, possibly. So this follows a woman who is recently widowed, and she finds out after her husband's passing that he was doing some things she was not aware of. He was embezzling money from clients, kind of like a Bertie Madoff type thing. And so she's kind of in hiding right now because she's getting publicly humiliated, and people are mad at her because they think she was in on it and that she knew all about it, even though she didn't. So she's trying to lay low and just kind of stay out of everybody's way. She's also hit really hard financially because all of these things have been seized because of what he did. So she doesn't have access to money or anything like that. She ends up getting a job offer from somebody to go and live in this house with his mother and kind of be her companion. Not really a nurse, but, just like she needs someone there with her, just to keep her company. Turns out his mother is a very famous writer that our main character really has admired for her entire life. And so she absolutely jumps on the opportunity to do that. So she goes and she spends time with this woman who is a character and is finding out things about this house along the way. So some weird things are happening, some strange things are happening. She can't quite put it all together. She doesn't know what's going on. She meets some really interesting people along the way, and yeah, it was good. I ended up giving it 3 stars just because quite a few times I found myself a little bit confused, which I'm sure was the point, but it wasn't like a good confusion. It was like, wait, I literally don't understand what's happening. And, it took a little bit too long for me to piece the things together. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. But overall, it was good. If you like Gothic stuff, I think this would definitely be a recommendation. The next one I read was On the Island by Tracy Garvis Graves, and this was recommended to me by Alana Reeds. Okay, guys. If you haven't read this book, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to read it because it was fantastic. I could not put it down. I had a feeling I was going to like it. It was actually one of my 5-star predictions. And I don't know. I just had a feeling I was going to really, really love it. And I've heard so many good things about it. And let me tell you, they are all completely true. This follows a woman who's in her 30s. She's a teacher and she gets hired for a summer job being a tutor to I believe he's 16 or 17 when they start out. And he is in remission from cancer, but he missed a lot of school because of that. So his parents want to kind of catch him up and kind of take that summer to catch him up on his school so he doesn't fall behind and have to put off his graduation. So they hire this woman to come to their summer home, which is in the Maldives, and to basically be his tutor for the entire summer. And she takes them up on that. And we start out the book with her traveling with the student to get to their house. The family's already there, but he stayed behind and they are traveling together. During their travels, the small little seaplane that they are on to get to their house crashes and they end up washed up on a deserted island. And I mean, completely deserted. There is nothing on this island. There are no humans. There's not a ton of animals, there's nothing there. So they have to survive. And oh man, the things they go through were just so realistic, and the way that they reacted to things, I think, were so realistic. And this definitely touches on a little bit of a taboo topic because it is a teacher-student relationship. They're the only two people on this island. Obviously, they're going to form a bond, and, they're surviving together. And it was really, really well done. I really like the way that she wrote this book and the way that she handled the topic of this. I thought it was smart. I thought it was tasteful, and I loved it. I really did. And the way the story goes is very interesting, and things that happen and, all that. I won't give too much away, but if you haven't read this, make sure that you do. And I have heard that there is a novella that goes along with this, and I'm going to have to check that out because I've heard that one was good too. I didn't know that there was a little extra piece to it, so I'm going to have to find that soon, but total 5 stars. Loved it. The next one that I read is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Woo! This was a big book, but I did read it. This was actually a reread for me. I read this, I think it was not too long after it came out. So it's been a very, very long time since I read this book. And I remember loving it, but I couldn't remember a lot of the details of it at all because it's been so long. So when this was suggested to me, I was like, yep, I'm going to put that on my list because I had a copy of it and I knew I wanted to reread it because the 3rd book just came out earlier this year and I would like to read this entire trilogy. So, oh my gosh, this one, it does not sound like it should be a good book. It is about stonemasons building cathedrals in the 1100s. Sounds kind of boring, right? No, it's not boring at all. This thing was full of drama. I was so shocked at how much drama there was in this book. And I remember, feeling that way the first time too, but I couldn't remember so much of the drama. But reading it again, I was just like, yeah, this is why I loved it so much because it was so interesting. I was never bored. I was never bored in this entire book. It is insane to me that I was never bored. And you follow not only the stonemasons, but there is a whole religious patriarchy type thing happening, and they are so corrupt. There is witchery happening and, women getting persecuted for being witches. And, one of my favorite characters was one of the women, and she was so sassy. It's just stonemasons, 1100s. Who knew, right? It's really good. I gave it 5 stars. Again, I gave it 5 stars the first time too. Still is a 5-star read. If you haven't read this, I definitely recommend picking it up. If this scares you, get the audiobook. I listened to it because it was a reread for me. The audiobook is fantastic. It's a great narrator. Yeah, so that would be my suggestion. And then you guys, then I picked this up. A Number in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This was recommended to me by my friend Mariah. Oh Okay, so this one was one of the biggest surprises on this entire list. I was excited to read it because I, heard good things about it, obviously. But I was not expecting to pick this up and not want to put it down. I did not want to put this book down, ever. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to know what was happening. It was so much action, and I just found myself completely immersed. I love the characters. They are so complex, so complex. Their feelings and their reasonings behind things make sense, but then they don't, but you understand it, but you don't, and you don't know which way to go. You don't know which way, like, what's the right thing to do here. And oh my gosh, one of the worst villains I've ever read, and she's a female, and oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm still thinking about this. I can't stop thinking about it. I cannot wait to pick up book number 2, and I'm officially obsessed. I'm officially obsessed, and I have a feeling this is going to be one of my all-time favorite series. There's going to be 4 books, I believe. 3 are out now, and I believe book number 4 is set to come out in April, and I think that's going to be the last one from what I'm able to find. And yeah, so I did actually purchase the first and second book in paperback because I like the paperback covers better, and they did do a cover change. So even the new hardbacks coming out are going to be in the same one as the paperback. So I'm going to be unhauling this one personally, but I have picked them up in paperback now, and I'm just so excited to get them all and to read them. And yeah, I can't wait. It was fantastic. This is a young adult fantasy. I haven't even gone into it. A young adult fantasy book that follows a young girl named Leia, and she has basically lost her family due to a very corrupt government, and her brother is arrested, and she is trying to do anything she can to get him out of jail. She goes to a underground society, I guess you could say, and is asking them to help her break her brother out of jail. And they, in turn, ask her to do them a favor in order to break him out. And she ends up posing as a slave and going into this school that trains the soldiers who become the government workers, and they're awful. And so she is a slave in there to the person who runs the school, and she is awful. So you see Leia going through all these things and trying to figure out things. She's supposed to be a spy, and she's supposed to be relaying information, but she could get killed for doing that. She could get killed for anything, basically. And it was just so much action. I wasn't expecting so much action in a first book of a series. I wasn't expecting that. Usually the first book is so many, world building things and, stuff like that. It takes a while to get to the action. This was like nonstop, and it was amazing, and I can't stop talking about it. So I'm going to stop now, but total 5 stars, one of the biggest surprises ever. And I just loved it so much. The next one that I read was The Uninvited by Kat Winters. And this one was recommended to me by Tia Lee. And this one was definitely a historical, spooky read. I would kind of categorize it as that. And this follows a young girl who is in the midst of kind of the American-Germany conflict, I guess you could say, as part of a war. And she ends up finding out that her father and her brother have killed a German man. Just like crime of passion type thing. And she feels awful that this has happened. She has a lot of compassion for the German man's brother who, is still there and all that. And she ends up going to him and basically trying to make amends for what her father and her brother did by, kind of helping him clean up his shop that they ruined and doing all that. And because of this, they end up forming a bond, and they kind of end up in a relationship. Now, I had issues with this one. Overall, I think the premise was really, really good, and it sounded very interesting, but I had a problem with the way that some of the things that they ended up doing came about. I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that they first had their first sexual encounter. I didn't like that, the way that it happened. And I didn't like that they basically used the sex to get away from reality and what was happening around them. I didn't like that at all. I was just like, don't do that. That's going to make things so much worse. And yeah, so I had problems. I had problems with it. Everything else was fine. Like, I think the overall story arc was really, really good, but I didn't like those little details, and there was kind of a lot of that. So I was considering a 2-star throughout most of the book, but then a big twist happened, and I was like, okay, you've got my attention again. All right. So I bumped it up to 3. So this was a 3-star read for me. I think if you don't mind like the whole sexual situation type thing happening, like if things like that don't bother you, then you probably enjoy it more than I did. And usually, I don't know, sexual things, like it depends on what the situations are, I guess, for me, because, you know, I've also read books where people use sex to get away from reality as well, and it didn't bother me as much, but maybe that's because the story was stronger. I don't really know. It depends on the book, I guess, but in this one, it didn't quite work for me. And the next one that I picked up is Whistling Past the Graveyard by Susan Crandall, and this was recommended to me by Manitucca Cottage. And this one I really enjoyed. I listened to this on audiobook. I definitely recommend the audiobook. It was fantastic. And I just really enjoyed it. I didn't know at all what it was about, but it is about a young girl who is living, I think, in Mississippi. I'm pretty positive. And I don't remember like when this was set, but it's not today. It's in the past. I can't remember if it was like in the 40s, 50s. I can't remember exactly, but a lot of racism was happening. Like it was just during kind of one of those time periods, like our country wasn't fully segregated at that point. So it's this young girl who is living with her grandmother because her father works on oil rigs and he's never there. And her mother has pretty much taken off and moved to Nashville to be a famous singer. And so this young girl is a troublemaker, basically. She's very strong-willed. She does whatever she wants, even though she's not supposed to. She tries to be good, but she just can't control herself. And her grandmother's kind of at her wit's end with her. And it gets to a point where the girl feels like she needs to run away and go find her mom in Nashville. And she does. She hits the road. She completely like leaves the house and I'm going to hitchhike to Nashville and find my mom and all this. She ends up getting picked up by a younger Black woman. The Black woman has a baby in her car who was white. And the little girl's like, what is happening? Did you kidnap this baby? And she, says, I didn't kidnap him. He was abandoned. His family didn't want him. So I'm going to take care of him. So they end up, I don't want to give too much away, but they end up, being together, like almost like a family, like a mother-daughter type of thing. And they do eventually make their way to Nashville, but a few things happen before that. So it's not like, you don't even think at first that they're going to even try to get to Nashville, but then they end up, doing that. So I don't want to give too much away, but I really, really enjoyed this one and I gave it 4 stars. A lot of things happened that I just wasn't expecting and I was really immersed in it. The characters were fantastic. A really, really good narration on race and, just race doesn't matter. And that's exactly what this little girl is all about. And I just loved her so much. It was great. So I gave this one 4 stars. Next one that I read is The 13th Tale, and this is by Diane Setterfield. This was recommended to me by Trish Polkinghorne, and this one was good. Now, I kind of expected to give this one 5 stars because I've heard such great things about it, and I don't know what it was that made me give it 4, but when I finished it, I didn't feel like I could give it a full 5 stars. I think because I found myself confused a lot of the time and kind of the same thing as The Vanishing, like not in a good way. But this follows a woman who is a bookshop owner with her dad, and she's also kind of a beginning memoirist, I guess you could say. She likes to write, not memoir, but biographies. She likes to write biographies on people. And she's just kind of starting out. She's not really, you know, hasn't written anything super significant, but she ends up getting an invitation to go to this very famous author's house. And she's kind of, you could probably classify her as, you know, like Jodi Picoult or Agatha Christie, just someone really, really well known and really, really prolific, like James Patterson, like one of those types of people. She gets invited to visit her house and to write her biography for her. She's, you know, saying, I'm going to tell you my life story. I want you to write it. Well, this woman is also very famous for lying and telling a different life story every time she gives a life story to a journalist. So she's very skeptical about, are you really going to tell me the truth? And she takes like some steps to kind of like almost guarantee that she's going to tell her the truth. And so she goes to this house. She learns a lot about her. And some weird things start happening at this house. And that's kind of what threw me off. I think I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. And maybe that's what just completely threw me off. And I ended up not liking it as much as I thought I was going to. I think I was just expecting something else. That probably is what it is and caused some of my confusion. But the writing is fantastic in this book. It really, truly is. And I did give it 4 stars. And yeah, but definitely some of the most beautiful writing I've ever read. All right, and the last book that I read for this entire project was One More Day by Kelly Simmons. This was recommended to me by Kimberly Akram. Okay. I was nervous about this one because I'm going to be honest, it does not have the best Goodreads ratings. I think the average rating is like a 3.3, which is kind of low. So I was like, okay, all right, but I'm going to read it. It's on my list. I'm going to read it. And I really liked it, you guys. I really liked it. I was surprised. I didn't want to put it down. I wanted to keep going to find out what was going to be happening. And I was just pleasantly surprised by it. So this follows a couple and their, is he 2? I think he's 2-year-old son gets kidnapped, broad daylight, out of her car. She had just, you know, left him in the car for just a second to pay a parking meter and came back and he was gone. So he has been gone, I think, I want to say over a year when this book opens up. And then one day he turns up again. So he's back, like in their house. They have no idea how he got there. And just what is happening. He was there for one day and then he was gone again. And they have no idea what's happening. So they are dealing with a lot of really bad emotions and really a lot of confusion and what's happening and a lot of media coverage because, you know, this was kind of a big kidnapping and, you know, no one knew where he was. And now he showed up randomly and now he's gone again. What is actually going on? And you see this couple dealing with this. Now, the wife is also dealing with some things from her past, which are kind of coming back to haunt her a little bit, along with the kidnapping of her son. And you see her kind of dealing with that, and some weird things are happening. And yeah, so really good. I don't want to give too much away because I think people should read this book. Just a lot of things were happening. You weren't sure, you know, what was actually happening and what was real and what wasn't, and who was this person and is this person what they seem they are. And, you know, you're kind of trying to piece some things together. I don't want to say she was not a reliable character or like a reliable narrator because, you know, she didn't drink or anything like that. She wasn't crazy. She questioned her sanity a couple of times. But yeah, for the most part, like you could kind of believe what she was saying, basically. But yeah, I really liked it. I really liked it. And it's one more day because, you know, she always wished for one more day with her son and she got it. But what is that going to lead to now? So it was very good. It was pretty heartbreaking at certain points. And, you know, just being a parent myself, you know, just imagining anything like that happening is terrifying completely. But I was pleasantly surprised by this one and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, guys, so those are all the books that I read for quarter 4. And now I have to pick a winner. So the person who suggested my favorite book of this quarter is going to win a $15 book of your choice. And it can be either from Amazon, which I have Prime, so I can Prime something to you. Or if you're international, I can do Book Depository. As long as it's under $15 US, it can be any book that you want. And I have had people pick from Amazon and people pick from Book Depository in the past. So whatever's going to work is whatever's going to work. So I'm going to show you my favorite book, and whoever suggested that is going to win. So I will get in touch with you about that. But this one was hard, because I had 5 5-star reads. Ugh. So I had to be very picky about picking a winner, because I loved all these books and, for different reasons. So I decided to go with the book that surprised me the most on how much I loved it. Because some of these books I read and I loved, but I was kind of expecting to love them. But this one I was not expecting to love as much as I did. So the winner for quarter 4 is An Ember in the Ashes, and that was recommended by my friend Mariah. So I'm going to get in touch with her and send her a book of her choice. So, but yeah, I really picked this up expecting to like it and to be entertained, and like, okay, sure. I'm obsessed with it, and I can't shut up about it. I really can't. I'm still, my head is still in this world, and I want to get back to it pretty quickly. So I'm pretty positive I'm picking up the next book fairly soon, but I just absolutely loved it, and I can't stop thinking about it and these characters and how great they are. And yeah, so this was my favorite. Everything else is a very close second, but this one ultimately just surprised me the most. Okay, guys, so that is it for my quarter 4 wrap up. So congratulations to Mariah. And again, Mariah, I will be getting in touch with you to see what book you want, so I can go ahead and send it your way. And I will be back tomorrow with a full wrap up of my entire birthday reading project books. So I will be talking about every single book, who recommended, what my star rating was, all that fun stuff, and kind of my overall thoughts on the project. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow, and I will see you guys again soon.